So here we are, chapter 15. We're going to talk about special senses. They're showing you somatic senses. So senses coming from the body, coming up the brain stem and being registered here at your sensory cortex. But then we also have vision, smell, taste, hearing, equilibrium, and those are all carried specifically to various sections. So your hearing and your equilibrium are going to go to your auditory cortex. Vision's going to come back here. So all the messages from your eyes get deposited back here at your visual cortex. Taste is going to go up here to your gustatory cortex. Obviously, your smell is going to go to your olfactory cortex. So both taste and smell have anatomy terms. So taste is gustation and smell is olfaction. So basically, these senses let us know whether a substance should be savored or avoided. So this is kind of survival, right? If you eat something that's really bitter, maybe it's not good for you. If you smell something that smells like a dead body, maybe it's not good to get close to it, right? So in your tongue, you have taste receptors that are excited by food chemicals, and they're going to be dissolved in saliva. In smell receptors, they're excited by airborne chemicals, and they're going to be dissolved in the nasal fluids. So you can see that we've got basically chemicals here, right? So what type of receptors are these going to be? And it says it right here, chemoreceptors. So you have chemoreceptors in your tongue, and you have chemoreceptors in your nasal cavity, and these are going to allow you to detect food chemicals or airborne chemicals. Taste buds. These are the sense organs for taste. We have thousands of taste buds. They're located on the tongue papillae. These are these little projections. We'll see some images in just a second. So there's the valate papillae. They form kind of this V at the back of the tongue. You have fungiform papillae. These look kind of mushroom shaped, right? And these house most of the taste buds, and they're scattered across the tongue. You also have these foliate papillae. These are on the sides of the tongue. So let's look at the image. So we said you had thousands of taste buds. They're just showing you location. So you have on the side, you have taste buds here and here, and those are called the foliate. And then you have these little bumps all over your tongue. These are the fungiform. And then on the back, here's that V shape. That's the circumvallate papillae. They call them valate papillae down here. Each taste bud consists of epithelial cells, and there's two types. So you're going to see gustatory epithelial cells, and you're going to see basal epithelial cells. These are really stem cells. So if you've ever burned your tongue, it takes a couple of days, and then all of a sudden your taste comes back, right? For a little while, you can't taste anything. So you always have these stem cells that can make more gustatory epithelial cells. Inside the gustatory epithelial cells, you have cells that have microvilli called gustatory hairs that project into taste pores, and they're going to come in contact with saliva. So for example, here's that circumvallate papillae that made that V shape on the back of the tongue, posterior part of the tongue. So they're showing you all the little purple circles. Those are all taste buds, and then they've expanded this image. So you can see, here's the pore. Pores the opening. Then you have gustatory hairs. Those gustatory hairs are on gustatory cells, so gustatory epithelial cells. And then back here you can see the stem cells, in case you need to make more. And then you can see how the nerve innervates the gustatory epithelial cells. We have 5 basic taste sensations. They're sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, which is the same thing as meaty, right? Amino acids make up proteins. So usually we can taste sweet better on the tongue. We can taste bitter better in the back, and we can taste salty better on the sides. But you can taste all of these anywhere on the tongue. We just have a higher concentration of some of the taste buds that detect these taste sensations in certain parts of the mouth. Let's walk through the physiology of taste. So what's going to happen in order for you to taste a chemical, right? So first of all, we have our pore. So in order for a chemical to be tasted, it must, one, be dissolved in saliva, two, it must diffuse into the taste pore. So out here, you're going to dissolve or start dissolving the food in saliva, and then the chemical is going to enter the taste pore, and it must contact these gustatory hairs that are on the tip of the gustatory epithelium. So the binding of the food depolarizes the gustatory cell membrane, causes a release of a neurotransmitter. The neurotransmitter binds to the dendrite of a sensory neuron and initiates a generator potential. We also called it a local potential, which leads to an action potential. So the food comes in, it makes contact with the gustatory hairs, that causes a neurotransmitter to be released. It's picked up by the dendrite of the neuron, and it sends a sensory message to the brain by generating an action potential. Two main cranial nerves carry taste messages from the tongue to the brain. So hopefully you remember the facial nerve and the glossopharyngeal nerve. Both of those are going to carry taste sensations, right? They're going to synapse in the medulla oblongata. They're going to travel to the thymus, and then they make it to the gustatory cortex, which is in the insula. Remember the 5 lobes of the brain. Hypothalamus and limbic system are involved. This allows us to appreciate. Remember, limbic system is like and dislike. So just a visual representation. They're showing you the facial, they're showing you the glossopharyngeal, and they're showing how those that are here at the tongue involved in taste are going to synapse to the medulla, then they're going to go through the pons, they're going to synapse again at the thalamus, and then work their way out to the gustatory cortex in the insula. There are some other important roles of taste that are involved with triggering reflexes. So think of this one: increased secretion of saliva into the mouth. When you put food, so I'm going to say, when you put food into your mouth, what do you automatically cause? You cause your salivary glands to secrete more saliva. Also, what's going to happen at the same time is when you put food in your mouth, you're also going to secrete, increase the secretion of gastric juices in the stomach. So basically saying, get ready, right? We've got food coming, get ready. What's interesting is about 80% of taste is based on smell. If you block the nose, the food tastes bland. You can't really tell the difference. There have been some really good taste tests where they have people identify 5 items, and then they put a nose clip on them and have them try to identify the same 5 items. And if they don't have the nose clip on, they can identify 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. Once they put the nose clip on, it's about 1 out of 5. So you really do need smell to taste things. So that gives us a good segue into smell, right? So in your nose, you have olfactory epithelium. These are located in the nasal cavity. Hopefully you remember your nasal conchae. They contain olfactory sensory neurons. We're also going to have olfactory cilia. We're talking about hairs again, right? Olfactory supporting cells produce mucus, and then we have olfactory stem cells that lay at the base of the epithelium. All right, olfactory epithelium. It's really just this section of the nasal cavity up here by the superior nasal conchae. You can see the olfactory tract, the olfactory bulb, and then we have olfactory nerves. So the air is going to come through the nasal cavity, and it's going to warm its way through till it gets to this where the superior nasal conchae is located, and that is your olfactory epithelium. Here's an enlarged image. You can see this is the olfactory tract where axons come together. This whole thing is the olfactory bulb. You can see that going through the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone, we have individual nerves coming down, and these are olfactory sensory neurons. Before, in the last slide, I just called them olfactory nerves. So at the very end of the olfactory nerves, we have a dendrite and we have olfactory cilia. That's the little hair-like projections, right? Then we have these supporting cells, which are going to make mucus. And together, we call all of this olfactory epithelium. We also have stem cells, and these stem cells can make more supporting cells. So smell contains hundreds of different odorants, right? Humans have the ability to detect about 400 smells. How is this different? Dogs can detect thousands of different smells, right? So each encodes a unique receptor protein. The protein responds to one or more odors. Each odor binds to several different receptors, and each receptor has only one type of receptor protein. So we have a lot of different ways to smell something, right? It can bind to a unique receptor. Sometimes they can bind to one or more. Odors can bind to one or more receptors. So we also have combinations. So I just want you to realize that this is pretty complex. Pain and temperature receptors are also located in the nasal cavity. So sometimes if you have irritants, like something that's high in ammonia, can smell hot or cold, chili peppers, and they give you menthol, some good examples, right? So what is the physiology of smell? What's actually happening when you smell something? So the dissolved odorants, right, the gases, are going to bind to receptor proteins in the olfactory membrane. This is going to open cation channels, positive channels, generating receptor proteins. We also called those local at one point. And that turns into an action potential, right? And the first relay station is in the olfactory bulb. Then those neurons are going to synapse with the mitral in the glomeruli of the olfactory bulb. So what the heck did all that mean, right? So here's your odor molecule. It is a chemical. And so what are we saying? What are we going to have here? We have to have receptors. And what do those receptors detect? They detect chemicals, right? So they're chemoreceptors. So you have some odor molecule that binds to the receptor. It generates a generator potential or a local potential. Then it generates an action potential, and you release a neurotransmitter here at the olfactory bulb. So what is this first neuron called? The first neuron is the olfactory sensory neuron. And you see how it synapses, right? So it synapses at the olfactory bulb with a mitral cell. So now the action potential is traveling on the mitral cell, but all of the mitral cells combine together to form the olfactory tract, and then this is going to go to the brain. So where in the brain? So here's my olfactory bulb, right? The mitral cells all collected the signal from the olfactory neurons, right? So the mitral cells amplify, refine, and relay the signals along the olfactory tract until it gets to the olfactory cortex. It can also travel through the hypothalamus, the amygdala, and the limbic system. This is again why we have like and dislike of smells. Somebody can find one smell really appetizing, somebody else doesn't like it, right? So it goes through your limbic system where you decide whether you like something or don't. Or maybe it can make you, maybe also connected with memory, right? Just trying to spit it out. Can make you, a certain smell can make you automatically think of someone, right? We also have something called anosmias. These are olfactory disorders. If you have a head injury and you tear your olfactory nerves, then you can't send those sensory messages, right? They get blocked. If you have inflammation in your nasal cavity, sometimes this happens if you're sick, right? Being sick can affect your sense of smell. Also, some neurological disorders that kind of block the sensory pathway of the message, the olfactory message to the brain. I did want to mention that there is something called olfactory auras. So basically, some people, very small percentage, but some people right before their seizures, all of a sudden they say they smell something very bad or very unpleasant.